The Human Anatomy and Physiology Diagnostic test results highlight how you performed on each area of the test. You can then outline the results to create a personalized study plan that is based on your particular area of need. Question 1. The term mental pertains to which of the following? A. Chin. B. Navel. C. Skull. D. Nose. E. Ear. Answer A. Mental is associated with the most anterior point of the mandible, chin. There is also a somatic nerve called the mental nerve located in the chin. The skull is associated with the term cranial, and the navel is associated with umbilical. The physiological term for the ear is the aortic, and the term for nose is nasal. Question 2. Which of the following groups of muscles in the leg allows a person to stand on their toes? A. Dorsiflexors. B. Abductors. C. Invertors. D. Evertors. E. Plantar flexors. Answer E. Plantar flexion is the movement where the angle between the sole of the foot and the back of the leg decreases. Plantar flexors are part of the posterior compartment of the lower leg and consist of flexor hallucis longus and flexor digitorum. These muscles not only work in plantar flexions but also flex the phalanges of the foot, toes. Abduction is a movement where structures increase their distance to the midline. Dorsiflexion is a movement where the toes are brought closer to the shin. Eversion is the movement of the sole of the foot away from the median plane. Inversion is the movement of the sole towards the median plane. Question 3. A coronal plane divides the body in two. A. Transverse and oblique. B. Medial and lateral. C. Superior and inferior. D. Ventral and dorsal. E. Left and right. Answer D. A coronal plane is any vertical plane that divides the body into ventral, anterior, and dorsal, posterior segments. A coronal plane will cross the body from one side, right, to the other, left. A sagittal plane is a vertical plane that divides the body into right and left and will cross the body from front, anterior, to back, posterior. A transverse plane sections the body into superior and inferior regions and will cross the body in the horizontal plane. Question 4. Which of the following is not considered part of the quadriceps muscle group? A. Biceps femoris. B. Rectus femoris. C. Vastus lateralis. D. Vastus medialis. E. Vastus intermedius. Answer B. The quadriceps muscle group consists of 4 different regions, each with a different origin. The rectus femoris originates on the anterior inferior iliac spine, AIIS. The vastus lateralis originates from the greater trochanter of the femur. The vastus medialis originates from the intertrochanteric line. The vastus intermedius originates from the shaft of the femur. Together, the muscles of the quadriceps work to extend the leg by straightening the knee. The biceps femoris is located posterior to the femur and is a part of the hamstring muscle group. The primary action of the biceps femoris is flexion of the leg by bending the knee. Question 5. Which of the following is not a muscle of the rotator cuff? A. Teres minor. B. Subscapularis. C. Teres major. D. Your current choice. Infraspinatus. E. Supraspinatus. Answer C. There are four muscles that form the rotator cuff: the supraspinatus, the infraspinatus, the teres minor, and the subscapularis. These muscles work together to stabilize the shoulder joint. The supraspinatus abducts the arm, and the infraspinatus and teres minor externally rotate the arm, and the subscapularis internally rotates the arm. The most common rotator cuff injuries occur to the supraspinatus, as it is the most exposed and superior of the four muscles. The teres major abducts and internally rotates the arm at the shoulder, but does not insert on the head of the humerus like the rotator cuff muscles. Instead, it inserts lower on the shaft and has less involvement in shoulder stability. Question 6. Which of the following best describes the primary curvatures of the spine? A. Thoracic and sacral curvatures. B. Cervical and lumbar curvatures. C. Cervical and thoracic curvatures. D. Lumbar and sacral curvatures. E. Only the thoracic curvature. Answer A. Primary curvatures of the spine reflect the original shape of the embryo and are concave to the interior. The thoracic and sacral curvatures are examples of primary spinal curvatures. Exaggeration of these curvatures is considered kyphosis. The cervical and lumbar curvatures are examples of secondary curvatures and are concave to the posterior. Exaggeration of these curvatures is considered lordosis. Question 7. Which of the following is located adjacent to the hamate? A. First metacarpal. B. Navicular. C. Capitate. D. Scaphoid. E. Cuboid. Answer C. The hamate is one of the carpals located in the wrist. There are 8 carpal bones, roughly organized into 2 rows. The triquetral, lunate, and scaphoid are aligned in a row from medial to lateral at the interface of the carpals with the ulna and radius. The pisiform is located anterior to the triquetral and occupies a slightly different plane than the other carpals. Distal to the row formed by the triquetral, lunate, and scaphoid are the remaining carpals. The hamate, capitate, trapezoid, and trapezium, ordered medial to lateral. The cuboid and navicular are tarsal bones located in the ankle and foot. Question 8. Which facial bone is responsible for the formation of the lateral wall of the orbitals? A. Maxillary bones. B. Zygomatic bones. C. Nasal bones. D. Lacrimal bones. E. Palatine bones. Answer B. While many bones are responsible for the formation of the orbit, it is the zygomatic bones that make up the lateral portion of the orbitals. You can remember this by keeping in mind that the zygomatic bones are also called the cheekbones and are on the lateral sides of your face. The frontal bone forms the superior region of the orbital, and the lacrimal bone forms the medial border. The maxillary and zygomatic bones each form part of the inferior border, with the zygomatic bone extending into the lateral border. The sphenoid and ethmoid bones both form the posterior wall, with the sphenoid region lateral to the ethmoid region. Question 9. Which of the following is not found on the scapula? A. Acromial process. B. Supraspinous fossa. C. Glenoid fossa. D. Coracoid process. E. Coronoid process. Answer E. The scapula is located posterior to the ribs and is used in the shoulder joint to house the head of the humerus and the acromion of the clavicle. The acromion of the clavicle interfaces with the acromion process, while the head of the humerus interfaces with the glenoid fossa. The coracoacromial ligament runs between the acromion process and coracoid process and serves to stabilize and protect the muscles of the shoulder. Damage to this ligament results in a separated shoulder. The supraspinous fossa is located on the posterior of the scapula and serves as the point of origin and the supraspinatus muscle. The coronoid process is found on the ulna and interfaces with the coronoid fossa of the humerus in the elbow. Damage or dislocation of the elbow can cause the coronoid process to fracture. Question 10. Name the suture that connects the parietal bones to the occipital bone. A. Metopic suture. B. Coronal suture. C. Sagittal suture. D. Squamous suture. E. Lambdoid suture. Answer E. Fibrous joints are responsible for connecting the bones of the skull. The lambdoid suture is the fibrous joint found on the posterior portion of the skull and is used to connect the occipital bone to the parietal bones. The coronal suture connects the frontal bones and parietal bones. The sagittal suture joins the parietal bones to one another. The squamous suture joins the parietal and temporal bones. The metopic suture joins the two frontal bones to one another. Question 11. Which of the following is not involved in joining a rib to the sternum? A. Synovial joint. B. Sternoclavicular joint. C. Costochondral joint. D. Hyaline cartilage. E. Sternocostal joint. Answer B. The rib bones do not directly interface with the sternum, but are linked to the sternum by regions of hyaline cartilage. The interface between the rib and the cartilage is a costochondral joint. The interface between the cartilage and the sternum is a sternocostal joint. Sternocostal joints are slightly articular synovial joints. The sternoclavicular joint is the interface between the sternal end of the clavicle and the manubrium of the sternum. Question 12. Which of the following does not serve an endocrine function? A. Heart, B. Kidney, C. Liver, D. Medulla oblongata, E. Pancreas. Answer D. Endocrine organs are capable of secreting hormone signals into the blood. The heart releases a trionatriuretic hormone, which stimulates vasodilation to reduce blood pressure and affects kidney function. The liver releases insulin-like growth factor in response to growth hormone, which has direct effects on stimulating cell growth and division. The kidneys release renin, which acts to increase blood pressure via sodium retention. The pancreas secretes insulin and glucagon to regulate blood glucose concentration. The medulla oblongata is located in the brain stem and regulates several vital functions, such as respiration and heart rate. It performs these actions via action potentials and innervation, rather than the secretion of hormones. Question 13. What part of the action potential results in the depolarization of the cell? A. Opening of voltage-gated potassium channels. B. Closing of voltage-gated potassium channels. C. Opening of voltage-gated sodium channels. D. Closing of voltage-gated sodium channels. Answer C. When at rest, the neuron initially has a negative membrane potential. At the beginning of an action potential, voltage-gated sodium channels open, allowing sodium ions to enter the cell. This causes the cell to become positively charged compared to the outside of the cell. This process is called depolarization. After depolarization occurs, the sodium channels close, initiating the absolute refractory period. Voltage-gated potassium channels then open and potassium ions exit the cell. This results in hyperpolarization and the relative refractory period. The potassium channels then close and the sodium-potassium pump returns the cell to its resting potential by removing sodium and collecting potassium. Question 14. Which of the following is not a branch of the facial nerve, cranial nerve 8? A. Cervical, B. Mandibular, C. Maxillary, D. Zygomatic, E. Buccal. Answer C. Maxillary is a branch of the trigeminal nerve, 5th, and not of the facial nerve, 8. The branches of the facial nerve from superior to inferior are temporal, zygomatic, buccal, mandibular, and cervical. Question 15. Damage to which nerve results in winging of the scapula? A. Axillary nerve, B. Median nerve, C. Thoracodorsal nerve, D. Long thoracic nerve, E. Subscapular nerve. Answer D. The long thoracic nerve innervates the serratus anterior muscle, which keeps the medial border and inferior angle of the scapula pressed against the thoracic wall. The long thoracic nerve is located very superficially and is often damaged during surgery. Damage to the long thoracic nerve causes the medial border and inferior angle of the scapula to elevate away from the thoracic wall, resulting in winging of the scapula. When this occurs, normal elevation of the arm is not possible. The thoracodorsal nerve innervates the latissimus dorsi. Damage to the thoracodorsal nerve results in diminished capacity to use the arms to pull the body forward or upward, such as the motion of doing pull-ups. The superior and inferior subscapular nerves innervate the subscapularis muscle, a rotator cuff muscle used to stabilize the glenohumeral joint shoulder. The median nerve innervates the flexus of the forearm and some parts of the hand. The axillary nerve innervates the deltoid, teres minor, and triceps brachii. Damage to the axillary nerve results in inability to abduct the arm greater than 15 degrees. Question 16. Which of the following does not contain apocrine sweat glands? A. Ear canal. B. Fingers. C. Parietal region. D. Areola of the breast. E. Axilla. Answer B. There are two types of sweat glands, acrine and apocrine. Apocrine sweat glands are slightly larger and open into hair follicles. They produce an odorous, thicker fluid in comparison to acrine glands. Apocrine glands are located at the perianal, axillary, and areolar regions on the body, as well as the ear canal and eyelets. The ear canals and eyelets house modified apocrine sweat glands that produce specialized secretions. Acrine sweat glands are located basically everywhere and open onto the skin surface. The fluid produced is more viscous, containing water, sodium chloride, urea, ammonia, and uric acid. Question 17. Which blood protein is used to maintain the osmotic pressure of the blood? A. Hemoglobin. B. Vasopressin. C. Immunoglobulin. D. Fibrinogen. E. Albumin. Answer A. In addition to transporting steroids and some fats, albumin is also responsible for maintaining the osmotic pressure of the blood. It is the most abundant protein in the plasma and helps to draw water back into the lumen of the blood vessels. Fibrinogen is the zymogen of fibrin, an essential clotting protein. Immunoglobulins, also called antibodies, help detect pathogens and tag them for destruction. Hemoglobin is found within erythrocytes and serves to transport oxygen. Vasopressin is not a blood protein, it is a peptide hormone secreted by the posterior pituitary gland. Vasopressin acts on the kidney to increase the hydrostatic pressure of the blood by retaining water, but does not affect the osmotic pressure of the blood in a significant way. Question 18. What would happen if the vagus nerve was detached from the heart? A. The heart rate would increase. B. The heart would stop beating. C. The heart's contractions would not be affected. D. The heart would not beat in a steady rhythm. E. Only one side of the heart would beat. Answer A. The vagus nerve is a parasympathetic nerve. The parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for rest and digest functions in the body and helps slow down the heart rate. When the vagus nerve is detached from the heart will still beat, but the loss of parasympathetic innervation will result in an increased heart rate. Autorhythmic contraction of the heart begins in the sinoatrial node with spontaneous depolarization. The sinoatrial node will generate an action potential roughly 80 to 100 times per minute. Innervation by the vagus nerve mediates these depolarizations to reduce resting heart rate to around 60 beats per minute. Question 19. As the carbon dioxide partial pressure increases, what will happen to hemoglobin's affinity for oxygen? A. It will increase. B. It depends on the temperature. C. It will decrease. D. It will initially decrease, then increase. E. It will stay the same. Answer C. There are a few factors which can decrease the affinity of the hemoglobin for oxygen. Increased acidity, increased temperature, and carbon dioxide pressure. As carbon dioxide levels increase, hemoglobin's affinity for oxygen decreases. This means that it will release oxygen more readily in areas of high carbon dioxide levels, such as in the body's tissues. Since carbon dioxide is a product of cell metabolism, regions with high carbon dioxide content are likely very active in metabolism. This metabolism requires oxygen for the electron transport chain. Thus, it is beneficial for hemoglobin to release oxygen in these regions in order to promote further metabolism. Question 20. What is the inspiratory reserve volume? A. The amount of air that stays in the lungs following exhalation. B. The additional amount of air that can be forcefully inhaled following a normal inspiration. C. The amount of air necessary to completely fill the lungs. D. The maximum amount of air that can be inhaled. D. The total volume of the thoracic cavity. Answer B. The inspiratory reserve volume can be thought of as the amount of air that can be brought into the lungs consciously after an unconscious inhalation. This value does not include the tidal volume that is brought into the body by normal breathing. The maximum volume of inhaled air from rest is equal to half the tidal volume plus the inspiratory reserve volume. Total lung capacity is the sum of the tidal volume, normal breathing, inspiratory reserve volume, additional volume from forced inhalation, expiratory reserve volume, additional volume from forced exhalation, and residual volume, air that cannot be forcefully moved from the lungs. Depending on physical ability and gender, the inspiratory reserve volume is between 1,900 and 3,000 millimeters of air. Women typically have a lower inspiratory reserve volume compared to men. Question 21. Which of the following is not a role of the hormone gastrin? A. Increased pancreatic bicarbonate secretion. B. Increased growth of gastric mucosa. C. Increased gastric acid secretion. D. Increased release of pepsinogen. E. Increased gastric motility. Answer A. Gastrin is a hormone secreted by the G cells of the stomach that acts to increase gastric acid secretion, increases the growth of gastric mucosa, increases gastric motility, and stimulates the secretion of digestive enzymes. In addition to stimulating the release of pepsinogen, gastrin stimulates the pancreas to release digestive enzymes. Bicarbonate, however, is not an enzyme and is stimulated by another hormone. Secretin is a hormone secreted by the S cells in the duodenum that acts to increase pancreatic bicarbonate secretion and decrease gastric acid secretion. Question 22. Which of the following glands would be most active in a person with low blood calcium levels? A. Parathyroid gland. B. Thyroid gland. C. Thymus gland. D. Pancreas. E. Pituitary gland. Answer A. In accordance with negative feedback and homeostasis, low blood calcium levels will cause the body to release a hormone in order to raise calcium levels. Parathyroid hormone is a hormone that acts to raise blood calcium levels by stimulating osteoclast activity, releasing stored calcium from bone into the blood. The parathyroid gland would be most active during low blood calcium in order to initiate this effect. The thyroid gland is involved in raising blood calcium levels, calcitonin, and mediating metabolism. T3 and T4. The pancreas moderates blood glucose levels, insulin, and glucagon. The pituitary gland is associated with several processes, including stimulation of other endocrine glands, but is not linked to parathyroid activity. The thymus is located superior to the heart and is the location of maturation for T lymphocytes. It also secretes certain hormones that affect immune system maintenance and development. Question 23. Which of the following is not a role of insulin? A. Increases cellular uptake of potassium. B. Increases triglyceride storage. C. Increases protein synthesis in muscles. D. Increases glycogenolysis. E. Increases glycogen synthesis and storage. Answer D. Insulin is made in the beta cells of the pancreas in response to ATP from glucose metabolism. Insulin inhibits glucagon released by alpha cells of the pancreas in a negative feedback mechanism to maintain constant blood glucose levels. Insulin has several anabolic effects, including increased glucose transport in skeletal muscle and adipose tissue, increased glycogen synthesis and storage, increased triglyceride storage, increased protein synthesis in muscles, and increased cellular uptake of potassium and amino acids. Glycogen is made by pancreatic alpha cells and is secreted in response to hypoglycemia, resulting in glycogenolysis and glycogenesis to increase circulating blood glucose levels. Question 24. How do steroid hormones affect their target organs? A. They travel to target organs by floating freely in the bloodstream. B. They bind to receptors on the cell membrane in order to be activated, allowing them to directly enter the cell. C. They attach to protein receptors on the cell membrane. D. They use a second messenger system to elicit an effect on target cells. E. They enter the nucleus and affect the transcription of genes. Answer E. Steroid hormones are nonpolar hormones that require carrier proteins in order to travel through the bloodstream. Once they reach their target cell, they are able to enter the cell's nucleus and affect the transcription of certain genes. Since steroid hormones are derived from cholesterol, they are small and nonpolar, allowing them to freely diffuse across the membrane without protein mediation. In contrast, peptide hormones and tyrosine derivatives are unable to freely cross the membrane due to science. Since these hormones cannot directly enter the cell, they generally initiate second messenger signals cascades. Peptide hormones are able to freely circulate, while tyrosine derivatives bind to carrier protein in the blood. Question 25. A fetal circulatory structure is used in order to take blood from the pulmonary trunk and reroute it to the fetal aorta. What does this structure become after birth? A. Ligamentum venosum. B. Fovea ovalis. C. Navel. D. Ligamentum arteriosum. E. Fossa ovalis. Answer D. The ductus arteriosus is used to reroute blood from the pulmonary trunk and place it into the aorta of the fetus, preventing flow to the non-functional fetal lungs. After birth, this structure deteriorates and closes. The ligamentum arteriosum is the vestigial structure that is seen in adults. Instead of connecting the pulmonary arteries and aorta, it helps to stabilize these structures. The foramen oval is fetal window between the right and left atria to help blood bypass the pulmonary circuit. After birth, this window closes to become the fossa ovalis. Question 26. Which germ layer will develop into the skeletal and muscular systems? A. Epiderm. B. Ectoderm. C. Mesoderm. D. The skeletal and muscular systems do not arise from the same germ layer. E. Endoderm. Answer C. Following gastrulation, three primary germ layers from the ectoderm, the mesoderm, and the endoderm. We can typically predict which structures will form from the germ layers based on the layers of the body. The endoderm will form the digestive tract, the mesoderm will form the skeleton and muscles, and the ectoderm will form the skin and nervous system. Question 27. What is the purpose of human chorionic gonadotropin, HCG, in the female body? A. Causes ovulation. B. Causes menstruation. C. Stimulates the corpus albicans. D. Maintains the corpus luteum. E. Maintains the placenta. Answer D. Human chorionic gonadotropin is a peptide hormone that helps prevent the breakdown of the corpus luteum. This allows the corpus luteum to continue secreting progesterone and estrogen during implantation. As the placenta forms, It eventually takes over the job of secreting hormones for the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum is only preserved when fertilization has occurred. Normally, the structure devolves into the corpus albicans. Human chorionic gonadotrophin can thus be used to detect pregnancy as it is only secreted after fertilization. Question 28. Which section of the small intestine involves the greatest amount of chemical digestion? A. Pylorus, B. Duodenum, C. Jejunum, D. Ileum, E. Cecum. Answer B. The small intestine is composed of three sections, the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. The duodenum is the first section and experiences the majority of chemical digestion in the small intestine. The pancreatic duct empties into the section, carrying enzymes to facilitate digestion of carbohydrates, lipids, and fats, as well as bicarbonate to neutralize stomach acid. These enzymes break down macromolecules in the duodenum. The jejunum and ileum are largely responsible for absorbing the nutrients digested in the duodenum. The cecum is a region of the large intestine which is primarily responsible for water absorption. The pylorus is a region of the stomach and connects the stomach to the small intestine. Question 29. What is the purpose of the bicarbonate ions released by the pancreas? A. Lowers the acidity in the small intestine. B. Raises acidity in the stomach. C. Breaks down proteins. D. Raises the pH in the stomach. E. Helps separate the chyme. Answer A. As chyme enters the small intestine, the pancreas will release bicarbonate ions. This not only helps lower the acidity of the chyme that has just left the stomach, but also allows enzymes in the small intestine to be at their ideal pH when functioning. Processes such as chymotrypsin break down proteins and hydrochloric acid from parietal cells in the stomach contributes to the acidity of the stomach contents. Thank you for watching.